good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zanziren Dewele, and this is the Breakfast Club. Today in our program, we'll be talking to a ZAPU presidential candidate. I know the last few weeks we talked to one of the candidates, Usipangilizwe Nkomo, and today in our program we'll be talking to Dr. Strike Mkandla, who is currently the ZAPU Secretary General, and he has been the Secretary General since 2016, and he will be contesting the presidential elections that is scheduled for October this year, COVID conditions and lockdowns permitting. So we want to know from him, what is he promising us, what are his plans for the party, and probably just try and check with him his involvement in politics. Why has he decided to contest the elections now? What is he offering? What's new? And many other things like that. But Mkandla, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yes, you are not new in politics. You've been in politics for quite a while. But maybe let me start by saying, when did you start being actively involved in politics?
Actually, that's a very complicated question because I was a child politician, which is not a common thing, and it only happens when circumstances force you into politics or you get drawn into politics. I actually went to my first meetings as a 12-year-old, believe it or not, which was during the National Democratic Party, because I used to carry loudspeakers and go up polls to put up PA systems for politicians. Stephen Nkomo, Msongelwa, Boysen Mguni, quite a few of the luminaries of the NDP. And then when ZAPU was formed, I joined the students' movements in the primary schools, which were very political. And I got recruited eventually to join the actual youth movement proper and move from the students to join the movement of ZAPU youth. And when it was banned, I joined the underground as an organizer of the students. So I've been in politics for a long time, to the point where, in fact, in 1964, I was quizzed and taken to 5th Street in Bulawayo here for interrogation because of organizing in 18 schools in Bulawayo against rises in school fees. So I've been in politics even as a kid. So it's been part of my life.
After you are involved in the youths and all these kind of things, then at one point you decide to go to Zambia. Why did you, or what led you to say, now I'm going to exile?
Actually, we used to be quite actively used by the leadership. For example, when Joshua Nkomo was coming for negotiations in Harare, in Salisbury then, some of us would be called from the youth underground to go up there and reinforce the youth in Harare. And so we're going back and forth. And in the process, we started thinking of how to break the silence that was imposed on Nkomo, because his messages were difficult to get to us here, let alone getting the messages to Zambia. And that is how then I was one of the two who, first of all, had to go into Gonaudzingwa to talk to Joshua Nkomo. And I spent a few days. This was end of 1969, beginning of 1970. And then I was then given the job of taking his message to the leadership in Zambia, which was headed by James Chikerema. And it also had J.Z. Moyo, Ziapapa. It had Edward Mbahwa Ndlovu and T.G. Slundiga and George Nyandoro. So the 5-man leadership was out there, but I was sent by Nkomo to go to Chikerema. That was 1970, beginning of 1970.
You get to Zambia there. I mean, 71. This is where there's a split of some sort within ZAPU. The Chikerema movement, or Chikerema leaves the party. Tell us about that. What happened?
Actually, while I was in Zambia, I went into special camps and was back and forth to talk to the Zambian government, because there was a dispute with Nkomo had told Chikerema to form an alliance with ZANU. And that was his contention. And of course, I went with the opposite and told everyone who could listen, to the Vice President Mainza Chona, to Simon Mwansa Kapwepwe, who was Minister of Home Affairs, more or less, and to Aaron Milner, many of the Zambian leadership, because they wanted to know what did Nkomo say. And I had to take the message that Nkomo had said nothing about forming an alliance with ZANU. In fact, they had formed an alliance inside the country for opposing the PS Commission, if you remember, 1970. So the PS Commission has been sent, and Nkomo had given instructions to Chinamano and John Nkomo to team up with Edson Stole from ZANU to oppose the PS Commission. So that is one of the things I was taking to Lusaka, to tell them, don't do anything to oppose what's going on inside the country. Bishop Mzorewa and others have been given an assignment to oppose the PS Commission. And then, of course, some of the issues were to do with the deployment of guerrillas, Nkomo's views on what should be done to ensure that the guerrillas didn't fight at the borders, but they went deep inside the country to support, to be supported by the people and to spread the fighting and so on. So I had specific instructions from Nkomo. And at the time already, the leadership, for some reason, were quarreling among themselves. Mostly, there was an element of tribalism cropping into the discussion, which was quite unfortunate. And there was a lot of frustration amongst the people in the camps. So at some point then, people refused to be split between the Nkomo camp, rather the Chikerema camp and the JZ Moyo camp. And that is how then the guerrillas rounded up the leaders to put them together in one place.
So this is the point where there is something called the March 11 movement.
Yes.
Tell us about this movement.
The March 11, that's actually to do with the date, because on March 11, 1971, the leadership was rounded up by the guerrillas and taken to some camp outside Lusaka. They were taken to Lutuli camp, actually, which is where the guerrillas of 1967 had used before they went into the country. And the Zambians then took everybody together to a place called Mboroma. And in Mboroma were the Kada conference, where the Chikerema camp, the Jason Moyo camp, and the guerrillas who were refusing to be divided were all put together to discuss about the future of the organization. It is after that conference that some people were arrested, or rather detained, as it were. And I was unfortunate to be in that group of 42 who were detained from there.
So you are detained after the March 11 movement?
The March 11 movement, yes. Well,
yes.
Put it this way. We were detained as leaders of the March 11 movement.
Okay, because you wanted your aim, you wanted the leaders to unite.
Yes.
Yes. So in your side, who were the other guys who were part of the March 11 movement?
The March 11 movement was not a small group of people. First of all, the 42 were just picked. But there were many people. They were from different camps. From camps near the Zambezi, from the camps near Lusaka, the two camps actually, where I was, which was Lutuli camp. And then the others came from what was called the Nkomo camp. There, in the Nkomo camp, the people who were there had mostly come from East Africa. They just come from training, others from retraining. And so we were together, quite a bigish number of people. Then there were people who had been taken from Lusaka, for example, from Zimbabwe House, which was the headquarters of the movement. And from other smaller places where guerrillas kept specialized groups, for example, communications groups, intelligence groups. So there were different groups all together at Mboroma. And from Mboroma there, a small group was then taken as the leadership of the rebellion, if you could put it that way.
So the guys who are you are arrested as people who led the rebellion. Who are some of the people that were with you?
Well, the people that got detained, it was Walter Mtimkulu was singled out, although he was not the leader actually. The person who was commander of the movement at that point was Philemon Mabuza. And there were other people. We had Jobek Mzileti, who I think people know here as an administrator. We had Joshua Mpofu, who has written a book about his experiences. He passed away last year, actually. And then we had Kane Matema, who was still in the system. And we had other people like Gershon Pangwana. There are others who became civil servants later, like Owen Chabangu, with Livingstone Mhambi Mashengele. He was also in that group. So it's a group of 42. That's a lot of people, as you can see. 42 of us were detained.
So you are arrested. How long did you stay in jail?
We stayed for over 3 years in different detention camps. But mostly, I was in a group that stayed in Kasama for over 2 years. And then we ended up in Livingstone before we got released upon a campaign organized through the instructions of Joshua Nkomo.
So you are released from prison. Where do you go?
Yes, then we were released from prison, and from there, the 42 of us actually, we all got a chance to go to the United Kingdom, regardless of what level you were in. Fortunately, we had used some of the period to upgrade for those who had not been to higher education. 4 of the people in the camps had been to university, actually. 2 had been to medical school, which is part of medical school, which is Gershon Pangwana and Walter Mtimkulu. With also people who had done degrees, which was Owen Chabangu, and we had been to the University of Dar es Salaam. Then we had Matsikidze Gutu. Gutu had been in the Soviet Union. So those 4 had been to university, but there were others like us who were in the middle level, who had done O levels, A levels, and then there were the others lower down the system. But we all went together to the UK. Oh, sorry, I forget. There was one guy that I usually forget when I talk about the university. That is Eli Mtetwa. Mtetwa had done a chemistry degree in Czechoslovakia. So he was one guy who was highly trained as well.
So you're taking to UK. Did you see that as a banishment or culture or just getting rid of you?
It's always a funny, a complicated thing because we didn't want to go to the UK. None of us actually wanted to go to the UK. We preferred Scandinavia because you could come back from Scandinavian countries and come into politics and continue with your politics. We were not inclined to go to education. We were forced. In a way, it was a blessing because we ended up with qualifications, but we hadn't intended to go to university at all.
Yeah, so you go there, you learn. Yeah, after your PhD, where do you start? Let me say, at Independence, where are you?
At Independence, I was still in the UK, and I'd been, put it this way, there are 2 groups of us. A lot of people had continued with school and done fairly little politicking. I was involved, I was one of those involved in ZAPU as well. So in ZAPU, we were in ZAPU until 1980 and still doing education at the same time. Now, I had started my PhD in 1979. So come independence, I was still doing my PhD until I finished in 1983.
So do you come back to Zimbabwe after finishing your PhD?
No. Again, it's another long story because I think Zimbabwe was a very complicated country for me because number one, I was coming from the party that was not in charge. Number two, there was a lot of tribalism in institutions. People who had even been on the Mzorewa side got absorbed by the ZANU, and they discriminated against us. So it was quite funny being discriminated by people that were supposedly moved out of power, but they had enough clout to stop you on tribal grounds, which they did to me. I can say that quite convincingly because some other people who were ZANU and opposed to tribalism did fight this case, like Ibo Mandaza, for example, was in ZANU, but he was quite appalled that some of us who were ZAPU were discriminated against by people who had been collaborators, so to speak, during the liberation struggle. But I couldn't come into Zimbabwe. And then I was already involved also with a lot of campaigning. For example, I was the organizer of the Journal of African Marxists. Now, for that, I had been picked by academics and activists from different African countries on the left. So I was helping them to run a journal. And through that, I got involved in a lot of solidarity movements, including getting to be associated with the Namibia Support Committee, and also helping the anti-apartheid movement, which was working with the ANC of South Africa. And then we were also helping those groups that were campaigning to support Namibia, because Namibia was still under South African occupation. In fact, that's how I got eventually to go into the UN, because in 1984, it was the 100 years of colonialism in Namibia. So there was a conference for that. And during that conference, a lot of the Namibians came, and some of them ended up identifying me and pulling me to the United Nations Institute for Namibia. So that's how I came. Instead of coming here, I went to Zambia, to the United Nations Institute for Namibia, which was training Namibians to run their country when they get independent.
So you work there till about, you work in the UN system for quite a while.
Yes.
Yeah, until about 2010, is it?
Yes, in different places, yes. In Zambia from 1985 to 1990 until Namibian independence. After that, then I went to Nairobi, to the United Nations Environment Program, and worked there for a good 10 years actually in different programs. And then the United Nations Environment Program sent me to Ethiopia to be their representative at the African Union, at the UN Economic Commission for Africa, and to Ethiopia as a country. So I had 3 different accreditations from 2002 to 2010 until I retired for 7 years.
So you retire in 2010, you come back to Zimbabwe. ZAPU had just revived in 2008. So you come back, you go back again to ZAPU.
That was not the plan. I'd actually been trying to go and set up a continental organization in Nairobi. But then Tomiso Dabengwa met me during the funeral of Naison Kezwana, who had been a ZAPU representative in Europe, in the UK, and who was with the Mangena in Algeria in 1965. So this is a guy that was highly missed. And during the
So is Naison?
Naison Kezwana,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So Naison Kezwana's funeral, that's where Dabengwa then said, Mkwenyana, son-in-law, you are here. It's good to see you. We need you. Then he sent me to go and join a team which was preparing for the Revival Congress of ZAPU in 2010. The Congress was supposed to be in August 2010, but I met Dabengwa between March and April 2010, and then ended up sucked into preparations for Congress.
So you are in ZAPU, you become a Secretary General, then now you want to be the presidential election. So
I was not Secretary General in 2010.
Okay, you were alternative then?
Not even then. In 2010, I was given the job of writing the manifesto. That's what I did, and presented the manifesto. And then from there, I helped to set up a ZAPU think tank as an advisory group to the leadership. And that's what I did until 2012. Then in 2012, I was picked to come and to be the alternate Secretary General, because the Secretary General was actually in the UK. And I was alternate Secretary General until 2016, and then got elected in 2016 to be Secretary General, which is now what I've been doing until now.
Yeah. So you now want to be the president?
There's nothing else to do unless I decide to go and be my own deputy or going down. Now the only way to go is up.
It's either up or out.
Up or go to the field, yes.
Yes.
And go and farm.
So you have not opted to farm? You have opted
Not
to
yet.
join politics?
Well, once you go farming, you don't want to be going to farm and coming to politics again. It's a one-way street. When you finish with politics, you do other things. And I think that I can contribute to the future of ZAPU before I go and do other things, which I wanted to do in 2010, actually. But now that I've come in and seen what has been happening, this is an opportune time to be of use to the organization as the transition happens now.
So if you were to be elected president, what would you change?
The first thing, actually, is an interesting question, because I was asked, what is your campaign slogan? So I said, my slogan is authentic transition. And a number of people have been saying, what is this authentic transition? Now, I think that authentic transition is an important concept because there is transition once there's leadership change. When Nkomo died, well, he died, of course, in the custody of ZANU, unfortunately. But Dabengwa came to revive ZAPU. And when Dabengwa revived ZAPU, he couldn't be Nkomo himself. Dabengwa had a lot of experience, but he could not replicate Nkomo. Now Dabengwa died. Those of us who were left behind can't replicate Dabengwa. It's impossible, because he grew up in politics. He was in the liberation struggle in the army. He was also a go-between between the army and the politicians as secretary of the Revolutionary Council. So his experience cannot be replicated. That's the first thing. He then became a minister for a good 10 years. He was in government. You couldn't replicate him right now amongst the people who are in leadership now. So our job is how to continue with what Dabengwa started. We've done reasonably well. Our acting president, Comrade Mabuga, has done a fairly good job, because if you have not been a minister and you have not been in the ZAPU Politburo, so to speak, top echelons, and suddenly you are lumbered with running the organization, he has done a splendid job to keep the peace, to keep us united, to keep us focused on our Congress, so that we elect a leadership that is accountable and that has a sense of direction. Now, that is very important. So it's not just a change of names, a change of faces. It's a question of what can we do given the enormity of the task we're inheriting. For example, Dabengwa was the head of ZAPU from 2010. He was also in the Mafela Trust, because that is a foundation built in memory of Lookout Masugu. He was also in the Zipra Veterans Trust, which was for helping the Zipra people to look after their own affairs. And then finally, the Zebra Veterans Association was formed to cater for the Zebras on the political front as an affiliate of ZAPU. So to do all that, nobody has been able to do that, and I don't think that anyone will ever be able to do that. So how to follow the work of Dabengwa and ensure that all what he has built survives is a big, big challenge. And also the style that he had, because he had a lot of personal authority. None of us have that authority. So we have to find our own way to make sure that everybody understands the imperative of unity, number one. Number two, that we are able to carry enough authority without the personal authority of Dabengwa, but with the authority given to us by virtue of assumption of the job. On top of that, we have to carry forward the programs that he started in terms of trying to ensure that there's a united stance of the opposition against the ruling party in Zimbabwe. Dabengwa did a lot of work on that front. And I think maybe you are aware that during Tsvangirai's time, Morgan Tsvangirai's time, Dabengwa was involved in a lot of discussion with Morgan Tsvangirai and others. And then came the time when with Mai Mujuru, she was involved with other people, with Mangoma, Makoni, lots of people. So Dabengwa tried to bring the opposition together. And we almost succeeded, but you know, everybody, when it comes, there's a lot of joking for top position, and sometimes personality clashes too. But he did a lot of work to try and pull together the opposition.
You are talking about, you know, the work of Dabengwa trying to work with the opposition. If you were to be elected president, are you open to working with other people as you go towards 2023?
Yes, definitely. That goes without saying, because I think you can even see as this week what has happened even in Zambia. Without people building a credible opposition, you can only get snippets of opposition to start with. It takes time to build a sufficiently strong opposition to take over. And it's easier if people come together. And we will definitely continue. But, you know, to build, you yourself must be authentic. You must have your own organization. And then you can bring something on the table. But if you don't have a credible leadership, a credible organization, you cannot make any input, meaningful input, to the building of an opposition alliance.
I've heard so many young people saying, you know, ZAPU maybe attract young people. What's your vision in trying to attract these young people to the party?
I don't know what that means, because, like I told you, I was a child politician myself. Yeah. I don't know who you could say attracted us. You know, if you have things which are relevant for the young people, they will come. You don't attract them. This is not a tea party, you know. There's work to do. And in this kind of work, there's sacrifices to do. Young people are unemployed. Young people know that there's repression. There are many reasons why young people may not just jump and become politicians overnight. And of course, they also see that some politicians have been doing a lot of personal aggrandizement, and they don't see why they should become cheerleaders for people whose vision they are not quite clear about. Therefore, it's not a question of just giving a fully worked out package, but is ministering to the different needs of the young people. They want to see leadership that knows what it is doing, which is saying sensible things, which is showing commitment to what they are talking about, and not one day they are talking independently. The next thing, some of them are joining because they are going to be given the four-wheel drive Land Rover. You know, you need to show young people that you are consistent and that you are going to be reliable, and also that you understand the kinds of issues confronting them.
And running a political party is not easy. It's very expensive, and it needs a lot of resources. You know, as ZAPU, what's your fundraising? Do you have fundraisers? How are you running your campaign? How easy?
Well, let's put it this way. ZAPU is not a favorite of the donors. And that's one of the issues because, and I hope actually at this point that the donors are also going to evaluate their strategy and not put their eggs in one basket, as it were, and have favorites among opposition parties. One time when I was with Dabengo, I said to a diplomat, why do you give your money to one or two organizations and leave us without money? He laughed. He said, well, you guys, you're complaining that we're not giving you money, but you should be happy that when we are not giving you money, you are in charge of your own lives. You are not dependent on anybody. You can do whatever you like. So that's the flip side of that. Because we've been independent and quite clear that we are not going to jump to the tune of any donor, we will not get money just like that on a platter. But I think that as we show, particularly if we can show unity of purpose, and if we can show that we are surviving, which we have done, by the way, we have survived the hard way. You know, we fundraise for our offices, we fundraise for our meetings, we've done our things. And when we did the 2016 Congress, for example, we had the best part of 4 beasts, and none of those came from one donor. They came from different people coming in to give support. Even now as we are going, our people in South Africa and even some here, they are already pledging things for our Congress. So we will get our Congress logistics from our people to start with. If we can get any additional thing from outside, it will be welcome. But we're not going to fold our arms and wait for anybody's gift. So yes, it is expensive, it is difficult. We will do it somehow. And I hope I have answered part of your question.
Yeah, I mean, probably as we come to the close, the other issue is we are under lockdown, and you are supposed to be campaigning. How is that possible? What do you do? How do you communicate with the people who are supposed to vote for you?
That is one of the reasons why we postponed our Congress, because we had already started going up and down to different provinces. And right now, if you go out, you meet only a few people because you can't group too many people. It is too risky. It is unnecessarily risky for our membership. We actually told our membership to stop organizing public meetings because they would then affect a lot of our members unnecessarily, whereas they can phone each other, and we have a lot of platforms. Now, I hope that, of course, we don't get to the habit of becoming a platform organization.
A WhatsApp organization.
Yes. Yeah. We have a lot of platforms, but sometimes platforms are not terribly good because the talkers get to drag you, and you are doing too much talking. And when the time comes to get down to the business on the ground, you will find some of them missing in action. So I hope that all the people we're attracting using platforms will also be there when the lockdown eases and we have to get down to business. But we are keeping as much contact as possible by electronic means.
Lastly, are you looking forward to be contesting the 2023 elections?
Yes. Well, you mean am I looking forward to becoming a candidate myself?
Yes.
Well, it's a bit far, but if I have to do it, that's what I would have to do. But I think that we are now, for almost all of us, we are focusing on getting our party to be in shape. Because of the pushing of the Congress forward from 2020, we are losing a lot of time which we should have been building up for by-elections and for the 2023 elections. So, yes, we need to encourage people to change focus. So instead of looking inward, that we also look at building the party to be in shape for 2023.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mkandla. That was Dr. Mkandla, a man who really has a lot of international experience when it comes to politics and working with the communities. By the way, his master's and his PhD is in international relations. So when he talks about politics and international relations, it's something that he has been doing for the rest of his life, with history in the liberation struggle. Someone who grew up in politics. So this time around you said, no, sengayenzela abanye sengaba ngo-secretary general, sengaba ngumfana wama-poster. Now I want to go for the presidency. But maybe let me ask you this question as I close. Wouldn't someone say to you, maybe it's a bit late, why didn't you do it earlier?
Well, meaning to be president. No, there was my favorite presidential candidate, which was Tumiso Tabengo. Actually, if it wasn't Tabengo around, I think in 2010, I would have gone back to Nairobi to set up a continental organization and then given him support from there. But he pulled me here. Now that I was here, I have done work with him. And I think the next logical step is to try and use the experience with him to ensure that the next round of leadership is built on all the things that we've done over the last 10 years.
So there we have it with Dr. Mkandla, who is the ZAPU presidential candidate, giving us his views about the politics, but also where he wants to take the party. I hope we are going to have this Congress in October, and the site will be following it up and bringing you the updates as it happens. My name is Ndebele. Till we meet again in other programs, have a good day.